All right, folks, in today's episode, we sit down with Johann Schmitz, former attorney, local law enforcement officer, general, cool dude. We're going to talk about mental health in the first responder world. Big topic, of course. We're going to talk about the number one thing killing LEOs out there. And we're going to talk about how to gunfight. Big topics. Let's go. Hey, so welcome to the North Idaho Experience, a podcast for the people of North Idaho and those who are North Idaho curious. The stories we share on here are the real stories of the people that live in North Idaho. If you're thinking about making North Idaho your home, give our real estate team a call, text, or email. We can help you out with that. Today, man, we've been trying to put this together for a while. We've got Johann Schmitz, local LEO. I won't say the department. You got a little brass on the collar too, huh?
Just a little.
Just a little?
A little bit.
Just a little? That's cool.
Yeah.
We wanted to get him in here. He's got a lot of experience in that world. Talk about that, talk about you're a big gun guy, and maybe some difficult situations you faced along the way. So thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Of course. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
With Johann on, there's no telling where this is going to go.
Yeah. Fair warning.
It's going to be a good time.
May not be appropriate.
You're going to have to put one of those disclaimers up.
Exactly. Trigger warning.
Where's your coffee, dude?
I finished. Listen, it started early. I thought I was being respectful. I said, hey, man, I'm going to swing through Starbucks. He said, Starbucks.
I was like, no, thank you. I'm good. I'm not a communist. I don't want to
listen, but if the communists had, sweet cream nitro brews to offer, then I just give them the nuclear codes. That's all.
Absolutely.
The hilarious thing is he walks into the office and David Allen's here and his wife owns a local coffee shop, Cassie Allen, Anchored Coffee, great coffee shop. And he's like, bro, what the fuck?
Immediately calls him out.
And I hope that if Cassie's watching this, she will recognize. I said, if you would get nitro brew and put sweet cream in it, I would come all the time. She's like, we're working on it.
There's one more customer. Fair. Fair enough.
True.
There's something about nitro. It's pretty fucking good. Yeah,
it is good.
I want to go from the beginning because you have one of the coolest, weirdest, funkiest ways that you ended up in law enforcement.
Are you from the East Coast? I'm hearing. I
get that a lot. I was a military brat, so I've grown up everywhere.
Okay. But sound like guys I grew up with.
Yeah. So yes, but where are we going? Like how far back?
No, just kind of the backdrop, because I know Western Washington's definitely in there, and then the field that you were in.
Yes.
And then where, that point where you're like, all right, after all of this, I'm jumping into law enforcement.
A decision I still regret to this day. Just kidding. We all have this altruistic streak in us that made us do this. So I was living in Seattle, in Western Washington. Let's just say it. Seth's gonna be like, I gotta.
Of course, that's why he's drinking Starbucks.
He keeps sliding that way further and further. Actually, I grew up everywhere. My dad was in the military, so I was a military brat growing up. Lived just about everywhere you can live. He ends up retiring in Seattle, so I finished my last couple years in high school there. Then went to the finest institution, and now the Big Ten, which is University of Washington. And back then it was the Pac-10, then the Pac-12, and now the Big.
It's still completely ridiculous. That's a whole nother.
We're going to go down a rabbit hole with why money's ruining college sports, but I digress. I matriculated in Seattle and then got a job in the legal industry, where I spent the better part of 18 years. I started out, doing defense work, and then there's no money in that. The money's on the other side of the V, on the plaintiff side. Got in a lot of personal injury cases and ended up suing a lot of bureaucracies and police departments, to be fair, and was very successful. And Department of Social and Health Services, if you want to talk about, remind me later when this rebel. If you want to talk about government waste, let's talk about DSHS in Washington State. So they're the ones that run adult family homes, Department of Social and Health Services. Anyway, made a ton of money doing that, but Western Washington is really, really, it is beautiful. I will say the Pacific Northwest is spectacularly gorgeous.
Geographically, it is amazing.
But it's really crowded. I mean, there's back then 5.5 million people in the Puget Sound region. So when it's a beautiful day and you want to go outside, you have 5.5 million other people with you. Yeah. And so I had a case actually in Spokane, Eastern Washington. I was like, man, this is nice over here. Still close enough to, major stuff, but the weather's fantastic. People are good. And so I moved. And I had a case against Spokane PD. Can I say that?
Yeah, sure.
Whatever. Anyway, and met some people in law enforcement, and then I was a big baseball player growing up. My kids played baseball, and the whole traveling baseball scene, that's another rabbit hole we put out. But anyway, had some friends in law enforcement, and back I was about 39, and say it.
Dude, so you did 18 years as an attorney, and then roughly.
Don't tell. Are we gonna do math so people
No,
know
I'm
how
not doing,
old
I'm
I
not
am?
doing
I know.
any more math than that, but I might get there. 39 is when you decided to get into law enforcement.
I did.
That is pretty rare.
It is, and it was kind of. So let me back up. Back in the now we'll know how old I am. I'll be 53 in May, and so I always had a love for law enforcement, and I wanted to do law enforcement when I was in high school and graduating from college. But I fell into the old Point Break. Remember Keanu Reeves and all that? The original Point Break.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. If we should do a whole podcast on how horrible it is to do remakes.
Yeah.
Whoever wanted to remake Point Break or remake Footloose, or they should, or Red Dawn. I mean, come on. Those people need to be drug out back. And
Roadhouse wasn't terrible. I'm just gonna say it.
That was a completely different. They went a whole different direction.
They were able to go MMA. It was like a totally different.
Totally
Conor McGregor was a little over the top of that.
Yes, but just
it was
walking the
ridiculous.
whole way. But anyway,
I tell my kid Roadhouse is like basically the story of my young college life.
Yeah,
working as a bouncer is very
loosely based on the story of Seth Horst. Obviously, he picked Patrick Swayze to represent himself. 100%. Yeah, I thought that was fair.
Well, I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't know how to say his last name.
Yeah.
I mean, he reminds me a lot of me.
He does,
from the neck down.
He might. I've seen another movie with him that reminds me more of you. But.
Really? Oh yeah. Does that mean you're Heath Ledger?
Could be. Okay. To play your cards right.
See, we're already off track.
Yes.
Okay.
No, but you had me at Point Break. Keanu Reeves' more natural role.
But if you go back to the early '90s, to get into, so I wanted to be in the FBI.
Yeah.
But back then they're like, hey man, it'd be really good if you had like a legal background. You know, I was like, I mean, I was an awesome student at UW. Negative. Listen, I'm matriculated. I was a frat boy, and I saw campus every once in a while. Most of the time, I just stayed up on Greek Row. But so I was like, well, I'll get into the legal industry, see what it's all about. And that was the rabbit hole. Once I started working in the industry, I got stuck in the industry, and then here I am 18 years later at the crossroads. It's like I never really kind of fulfilled that dream of being a cop. And I got cops on my son's baseball team. I started talking more and more to them, and I said, it's now or never.
Right.
I'm 39 years old, and so took the plunge. My wife we were living in Spokane at the time. All my friends were at Spokane PD, and she's like, that town's such an armpit. And think of two armpits now. Back then it was only one armpit.
Right.
And she's like, why don't you find someplace safer and, to be a police officer? Coeur d'Alene's so quaint. We go over there all the time. It's beautiful. There's no seedy underbelly. And so, I was like, okay, I'll apply for Coeur d'Alene PD, and the rest is history.
39. Yeah, some departments wouldn't even, the department I came from wouldn't even take you at that age.
Yeah.
You'd be aged out.
A lot of life experience.
What's it like showing up for the physical test with a walker? Is that like
listen,
or how's that?
Listen. I was in shape back then.
Yes. And I know we're going to get into gun running later. We really should have gone to the range with him first, because then he comes in and he starts talking about his age after he just beats your ass at the range. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, we should.
So fast.
We should. We should go to the range, but so I did. I pride myself on taking care of my body. That's pretty funny. Yeah. I actually do. I only incessantly work out and take care of my body so I can do all. Seth and I were talking about balance in life before we came on the podcast, and so you gotta work out a lot if you want to do the other bad things, because there's got to be balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't be one of these people that does everything right, like I'm going to eat right, and because then what's the point of life? I want to eat steak, I want to eat sugar, I want to drink alcohol to excess. And you can,
absolutely.
I want to snort cocaine and do. Just kidding. My bosses aren't going to watch us. We do randoms.
I had a thick background too, dude. It's okay.
But I mean, I want to do all those things that make life fun. But you got to look at the other side of the equation. So everything has a cost. If I want to do those things, then I want to live longer than 53, then I got to exercise.
That is absolutely true. If you run like too tight of a ship for too long, you'll freaking snap.
You will, 100%.
And then you go way off the deep end.
Yeah, and so, like I said, I think that life is all about balance and perspective, and so, we can't truly be happy unless we've been sad. We can't truly be healthy unless we've been unhealthy. And so, in my many years of wisdom in my old age here, I've determined that perspective is probably the greatest asset if you could pick one.
Right.
On life itself.
That's a hell of a statement. I say that I say that a lot. Good days aren't good days unless you've had bad ones. You don't 100%. You don't want to go through life just there in the middle. Otherwise, you don't know the benefits of being on the high side of that roller coaster unless you felt the really lows.
Yeah.
So some of that. And I think the goal in life is try to make it not so high and not so low and find some sort of compression. But you have to know those moments.
This conversation started because I just got back from a cruise with Dave and his family. And I drank in excess every day, and I ate. I was never hungry. Like, I was like, wow, I'm like fucking never hungry on this because I ate constantly. I was disgusted with myself. My body was falling apart. I got back to town, and I was like insanely motivated. So last couple days, I've been eating super clean, killed it at the gym. I don't think I'm going to touch alcohol for like a month. I say that. We'll see. But that's how this conversation started.
That's late intentions.
I'm not blaming on the alcohol.
No, well, I mean, touch alcohol for a month. Look, we've all remember when. Let's go back when you were like, listen, I'm gonna do all the right things, and maybe you were, with your lady friend, and you were like, and then you have that scare. We've all had the scare, like, hey, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be so good. Yeah. If you get me through this without being a father, I'm gonna be so good. And what happens like the next week?
I had that when I was 15, by the way.
Same thing happens. Yeah. We never really just embrace the balance of your trip and knowing that you're gonna eat healthy this week and next week have a bunch of steak.
Yeah. I have steak is healthy.
Yes, it is. Protein.
Yeah. No, I get that though. You just got to enjoy the ride. Like I said, I've had a few events this year that have kind of changed my perspective on stuff. No, man, don't
Anything
sweat.
big happen that you would like to announce?
Don't sweat the finish line, right? Just enjoy the ride. Well, I did put in my notice at work, so I'm no longer going to be on the active law enforcement side, which I'm still kind of.
I feel it.
I know.
Here,
I know.
But we've talked about it.
It'll take a while for that to set in.
Right.
You're still like on the books.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You're not fully out. I saw on your calendar yesterday something about turning a gun in or something.
That was with this guy. That was with this guy. That was for something else entirely.
Oh, okay.
No, but honestly, we had it's really cool there, and I think part of it's a product of the size department we're at. I guess I can say that we're at the same one, but it's really easy to have mentors there. You see each other every day, and you can kind of talk through life circumstances that aren't just about professional related circumstances. And because you watch people going through seasons of life, and you try to learn from those, and then you go through seasons yourself, and you got other sounding boards, people that you respect. And I swear,
I don't know why you're looking at me.
No, man. Honestly, it's really easy to kind of look up and kind of fall for the false facade, where it's really easy to respect somebody when you've seen them go through seasons and then come out of it clean on the other side. And I know I certainly have, right? So it's a lot easier. I mean, you guys knew what was going on, and I got a hell of a group. Well, I don't know, a tolerable group that I'm associating with on the other professional side. So, it's different. I don't think a lot of people leave this job kind of when they're on top, and I kind of feel like I'm, at my peak. Yeah. But not everybody gets to choose their circumstances either, so I'm blessed for that.
That's a great way to look at it. You were the sergeant for the opiate task force, and like that's a pretty prestigious freaking spot. You're well respected in the community. You're an expert in what you do, and you can kind of step away rather than being the 65-year-old alcoholic sergeant. And I'm not saying you, but I had that guy. I had that guy. He wasn't 65. He was almost 60. But, just like, yo, bro, you should have hung it up fucking 10 years ago, buddy.
Hey, we watch it in sports, man. I don't want to be Aaron Rodgers, all right?
I don't want to be Robert Smith.
Yeah.
See? There's a one. Remember for the Vikings, running back, left at his prime?
Yes.
I don't even know what sport we're talking about, to be honest.
Football, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not a big football guy. Yeah.
You are.
Yes, definitely.
You're like psychotic about football.
A little bit. Although I've gotten far more into youth sports, which sounds a little bit weird. I like watching kids sports. All right, does that sound? I feel like I'm. Yeah.
And funny thing is, you don't have any kids.
Yeah, weird. Now I'm on a registry. All right. I know Cowan's going to be at my door tomorrow.
He will.
So it's going to be wild. I know there's going to be those moments, but I still plan on taking a very active role in what's going on with the guys on the street, just from a different level.
Yeah.
I've long said I think nobody's First Amendment rights are suppressed more than cops in the military. I'm about to be unleashed. So it's fun.
No, it's good, and that's actually necessary and good. And listen, once you're in the fraternity, you're always in the fraternity, and you'll have those connections with the guys. And
that is absolutely true. And I didn't even work in law enforcement up here, and just meeting guys in the community that I'm like, I have the same background, immediate trust.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's awesome.
So it's one of those things where we'll miss you, but your altruism will bleed into the community in other ways, and and. Like I said, you're always part of the family.
I appreciate that, man. Like I said, it'll be tough.
Even when
I see it on North Idaho
gain.
Yeah, but I see it on North Idaho News, and it's like, man, what are they doing? Like, what's going on? You just want to know what's going on because usually I'm in the middle of that.
Yeah, but now you'll just be like, or else you just call, like, hey, what's going on? Like, this is what's happening.
Yeah, you guys okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that won't go away.
Yeah. So what was the biggest unforeseen? I know you always want to be a cop, man, and jumping into it at 39. I got into it later in life. I was like 31, and I'd been 10 years active duty, so had some crust, as they say. He and I often joke about our backgrounds. Like sometimes we think we got into law enforcement because we had some shit to make up for.
Yeah. Listen,
same.
I'm still working that debt off. Hopefully when I come to what's next, like, when you need to go back and try again.
Yeah.
Be there till you're 75.
Yeah. Not quite in the black yet.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean, but we joke about that just because we'd made other decisions in life.
Yeah.
Like, I certainly think it helps in law enforcement to have been on the other side a couple times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not being a perfect human.
Sure.
In my younger years, I think it's helped a lot. But what was the biggest unforeseen adjustment for you?
Yeah, God, that's a good question. I think that society in general, makes law enforcement, and we all know, into something that is, sexy and packaged for television, and it's going to be this great thing where everyone looks good, and you're going to go and you're going to be a hero and lauded every day. And I don't think that you get prepared for the true kind of depth of what you end up wading into. So we know that, and I always say this all the time, when you look at our friend group, like the people in our peer group or say, how many times have you called the police to solve your problems in life, right? And so most normal people that we, associate with just kind of solve their own problems, so they don't need to call us to come solve their problems for them. And I think that's the truth with probably 90% of the population. But then there's that 10% segment that just can't quite solve their own problems. And all the things that are associated with that is pretty ugly and pretty dark and pretty seedy. And so, as you know, that is where we spend 90% of our time with those 10% of people. And so you get exposed to a lot of truly dark human issues, ranging from addiction to abuse to you name it, all the way up to murder. And so I think for me, once that veil got pulled back of what I was going to be spending the most of my time doing, that was an adjustment. So you've got that segment of it. And then you just have the other segment, which is just sometimes really bad things happen to really good people.
Right.
And so you deal with that aspect of it, and that those are the ones that kind of stick with you. Good parents, who's with the way society is going, kids commit suicide. Someone who loses, a loved one in a car accident. Someone whose kid, falls into a tub and drowns. Those are just good people that something really bad happened to, and that was an adjustment because it's not what you see on like Chicago Fire or, you know, whatever you see on TV where, you know, in 52 minutes, you know, you get the beginning, middle, and end, and then, you know, lather, rinse, repeat the next day. Or the cool-ass shit that you expected from, like, Lethal Weapon. Yeah. Talk about a series they did too many of. They should have stopped at Lethal Weapon 2.
Yeah, agreed. Yep.
But so that was rough. And, you know, and you know, dovetailing back into what you said, you're able to leave, you know, this profession with enough of your soul intact. That's a good thing because I don't care how, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't care how resilient you think you are as a person. If you stay in the soup long enough, the soup eventually bleeds in. And so it doesn't matter what wetsuit you're wearing, you know, what dry suit you're wearing, what armor you put up. Eventually it's going to seep in through the cracks and you're going to feel it. I'm glad that then you end up being the 65-year-old sergeant whose only coping mechanism is a bottle of Jack when he gets home.
Yep.
And
he's gonna die on the shitter in the office.
Or finally, once that cortisol dump happens, he dies anyway. You know, what's the average life expectancy of a cop after retirement? It's like 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah.
So,
military's or even worse, at your retirement day, there's nobody there that's gonna recognize Johann the next day, right?
Well, and we've talked about we just had this conversation when you decided to move on to greener pastures, and something my dad told me really stuck with me growing up. It's important, I think, in life to love what we do and put ourselves into something that gives us meaning, you know, outside of, I mean, we got to have family, you know, you got to have faith, you got to have those types of things, but you also want what you do to have some meaning, but you can't let that be your identity. Whatever it is, whether it's cop work or working at Starbucks, you know, for the communists, or you know, whatever. Whether you're, you know, the guy at the bank or selling real estate, you know, it can't be your absolute identity because it's just a job. We like it to believe that it's more than just a job, but it's still just a job, and especially in law enforcement. And my dad's always said that. He said two things that really stuck with me. One is any job you're in is like a bucket of water. You put your fist in the bucket, right, and you pull it out, and as quickly as the water fills in, that's how quickly you're replaced. Which is true because the bucket is ongoing. It has to be. The department we work for has to be able to continue without you or without me. And if the experience disappeared, people still got to come here and get houses, right? I mean, the system moves on, and we are a cog in that wheel as it rotates, and then we go on to what is next. And so, you know, he said, don't get too overly invested in that. And we've seen that in our profession. We got people that are way overly invested, and they think that, oh my gosh, I've done all these great things, and I've saved these lives, and I've had these experiences, and the day that my retirement comes, there's going to be this huge parade, and, you know, everyone's going to be waving flags, and like, how are we going to get on without you? Please don't go. And then, nah, that shit doesn't happen. You gone.
Yeah.
And then they replace you with the next person and the next person. And if you've invested in that so deeply, that can be a really hard thing to overcome. And that's why we end up with a lot of people that leave the profession that really spiral or do other things. And so that's one lesson that I'm trying, and we're all human, right? We all, what did I say a few minutes ago? Perspective is the greatest, I think, attribute a person can have, but our perspective tends to narrow and narrow and narrow, so you don't realize that you have invested in this place or whatever profession you're in until it's too late, and then when you pull up, you can either gain new perspective and recognize what there's out there, or get stuck.
Or some people double down and
drill deeper,
invest more.
So you know, so there's that, and then the other. My dad only gave me 2 lessons. Just kidding.
That was a good one though.
But that's one. The other one is you get one day.
Right.
You get one day for everything. So one day to feel really, really, really great about something that you've done. So if, man, one of the memories that sticks out for my younger son was a baseball player. And man, we had in Spokane, there was, it's like LC and CDA here for the battle for the fish or the chicken or whatever the fuck it is. Because I don't know anything about basketball because I'm really short. So there's a rivalry game, right? And my kid, it wasn't really a pitcher, but he comes in to pitch because he's got a pretty live arm. He was a third baseman. And he strikes out the side, clinging to a one-run lead, in the bottom of the 7th inning, and everyone goes crazy. He's a senior in high school, and it's, I'm like,
epic moment.
Epic moment. But my dad said, you get one day to really, really be really excited about something that you did or some accomplishment that you had, and then the day's done because life moves on, and then you move on to the next day. And you can't just sit back on your laurels and be like, remember that time I struck out the side? And we see that in life all the time. You get one day to feel really, really good about something that you did. Conversely, you get one day to feel really, really shitty about something you did. I mean, an absolute bed shitting, man. Right. You wake up and you're like, I could have tried to shit the bed more, but failed, right?
Right.
I can't believe how much shit the human body can hold. And it's all in the bed, right? Yeah. So we've all had that moment where we have professionally, personally, where we just shit the bed. And it is okay to feel bad about shitting the bed. I think that's normal. And we should feel bad about shitting the bed. But after that day is done, the next day starts. And so just like you can't dwell and rest on your laurels for all the good things you did and celebrate after that day, you can't dwell on all the bad things you did or you'll be stuck. Right. And so that is true movement. Now, I'd like to say that I live my life by those principles, but I'm human and I haven't. But if you can kind of always remember that perspective, then I think we'd be healthier.
That is funny. I have the same policy and I've been talking to my kids about this lately. I had some not my immediate family, my parents' cousins drama recently around politics, of course. And, I was just feeling like dog shit one day. And I was in the office and everybody's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, because I'm usually a very happy person. Yeah. And I'm like, I just, going through this thing with my family, whatever, I give myself one day.
Yeah.
And the next day. So I've been trying to get that into my kids' heads too, because I think, obviously that's the lesson that stuck with you. So I think that's important. Beyond that, what you just dwelling on it, like you need to move on at some point.
It is hard, and depending on the levels involved, I mean, we all have many micro victories and micro bed shittings every day, and then sometimes we have major victories and major bed shittings, and I think that maybe can impact the timeline a little bit, one direction or the other. Right. But generally speaking, I think it's important as humans that we just keep moving forward, and it's hard. You'd think, well, how can not being like the best thing in the world keep you motivated to keep moving forward, right? Like if you only have good days and good days and good days, getting back to balance. Listen, the whole goal of this podcast is to make Seth feel good about I think they commissioned a study. And before Elon Musk Doge shuts it down, they have a study on how Seth Horst could have drank and ate so much in a finite amount of time and lived. Yeah. So really, all I'm kind of doing is in a very subtle way trying to make him feel better about.
So you can not drink for one day. All right.
So I'm okay now because I got back Saturday.
You shit the cruise bed.
Sunday was my day to shit the bed.
The boat almost sank from that. They're like, did the laws of physics get suspended because there's only so much matter that can come out of that. So anyway, but no, what I was driving at is, if we still need that balance, in a utopic society, let's say, and I don't know what the intelligence level of it, so utopic in a perfect society. Right. Maybe the people that watch the experiment.
Yeah, you better explain
what is utopic?
Yeah.
Think about that, like utopia, there is no bad, it's only good.
Right.
But then is it good if all you know is really, really good? Do you really know what good is? Do you know what it feels like?
No. So they've done that. They did that with rats. They did it with rat colonies, where on one side they gave them all the food and water, because rats are kind of hierarchical. They'll have kings and queens, and then it kind of breaks down, and they keep a lot of good order and discipline, and keep food rations, stuff like that. Rats are pretty organized, but they gave them all the food and water they could handle, and guess what happened? It turned into pure chaos. It was like rape, incest, murder, like.
Thankfully, I didn't get that far on the cruise.
But yeah. So you were just at the beginning.
I was like,
levels,
at the beginning, another week.
Hey, imagine that cruise shit for a year, bro. Where you got our own colony
Holy
experiment.
Shit.
But in the other, where they could regulated food and water, that's what they have is a little bit higher because there's good and bad. I don't know. I think you see the highs and the highs and lows.
Humans crave structure. I mean, 100%. We raised our kids like that.
Yeah.
And you know, we were hard on them when they were young, on them all the time, and now they're fucking easy.
Yeah.
Like that structure was established early on, and you know they've just stuck to it, and it's been good.
Yeah.
I hate you so much
sorry.
right now. It's easy. Your kids are like the same age as mine.
My kids are easy.
And I'm pretty strict. Yeah. And you've met my son.
Yeah,
maybe it
He
doesn't
just turned
always work.
50.
Yes.
You are pretty strict. Yeah.
Love him to death, but he drives me crazy.
I'm falling into that category that my kids are so old. They're 27 and 25 that I don't remember all the fuck ups I had. I'm like, oh, they're good kids. It must have been easy. You know.
Yeah, and you've talked a lot of sense into me because you know I'm big. My son's big into sports. It's kind of his outlet. And you're like, man, at the end of the day, just make sure they're good people. Like no matter what they do, just make sure they're good people and good humans by the end of it. And generally fall on that side. Doesn't mean they don't make mistakes. I harp on it all the time, man. Some of the mistakes and landmines that are available to this generation are so much more vicious than the ones.
It's terrifying, dude.
It's super hard. I literally just had this conversation with my therapist. Yeah. I'm a regular therapy user. How else can you be this, balanced?
Right.
But just kidding. Not really. Just kidding. Not really. Anyway, so I was talking about my kids, and we all have that. We all want to look back, on our legacy, for lack of a better term. And Jesus. And we have been drinking. Just kidding. I mean, it's 9 in the morning.
It's required.
East Coast time. So, I was thinking about, the mistakes I've made, raising kids. And, we're all just people doing the best we can.
There's no manual.
There's no manual with our children. But I remember having a conversation with my younger son, who's a lot like me. My older son's a lot like Heather, my wife. And the younger son, I'm talking to him, and he's, asking advice and going through this professional thing, and he's kind of embarrassed. And I'm like, listen, I'll always, to the last fiber of my being, I'll always support you if you need that support, as long as you're just moving forward and being a good person. I said, I think in today's society, and especially for you, don't undervalue being a good person. There's a lot of value in just being a good person. Yeah. And in our former line of work, for you, now for you, I can say that, we see a lot of bad people. You can look great on the outside and, professionally have it all together, but you're kind of a fucking bad person.
Right.
And so when
they come in a lot of different packages. There's a lot of window dressing.
Oh, 100%. In every facet of society, it's not just the meth-addled fucking tweaker on the street that's stealing. Like, well, that's kind of a bad person. Man, there are way worse people, packaged differently in this world.
Oh, I've told you. I've run into some of those that was like, you know what? I have respect for some of them, sometimes more than people that have reached positions.
Yeah, 100%. And so when I told my son, it's like, you're a really good person, and you cannot undervalue that. Whether you're rich or poor or successful or unsuccessful or happy or sad, if you are at your core a good person, then I've succeeded. Yeah. And both of my kids are truly good people. And so, look, I fucked a lot of things up, and but that part I probably got right through luck.
Yeah. Well, maybe you're not giving yourself enough credit, but that is number one, man. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, I don't care if you're good at math. My daughter's doing math. Like, they're already doing math. I don't understand. I don't need. Yeah. Nobody needs that except maybe an engineer. I don't care if you learn that. The only thing I want you to learn while you're growing up is to have good character. I want you to develop yourself into a good human being. Yeah. Everything else, you're absolutely right. Everything else is secondary. Yeah. If you can go into life and you can be honest, dependable, loyal, good person, fuck, you can do anything.
100%. And you will ultimately move on to whatever is next, more prepared for whatever is next. But, so at our core, you really want to be good. Yeah. I know this is like, wow, I didn't think we were going to get
It's very uplifting. No. Very uplifting.
I thought we were going to be talking about,
we'll get there.
Shooting
it's
guns.
And,
all right.
This is the balance.
You're right. See, I lost my way. Thanks for bringing me back.
I got to circle back to one thing you touched on. we were talking about the risks in growing up today, and you've gotten this into my head with fentanyl. Like when I was a cop, like I never, not once dealt with fentanyl. You know, it's been 5 years now or whatever. But I had a really big win on the cruise with my kids because we're in Mexico, and my son was like sick. He had a cough, a sore throat. So I'm like, all right, we're gonna go to this Mexican pharmacy, and we're gonna get some medicine.
Right now, Eric's blood pressure's just going through the roof. Yeah.
So we go to this pharmacy.
I want to know what they have.
You can buy all sorts of shit there. I'm like, oh, this is wild. So I buy like, I think it's the Mexican version of Dayquil, and my son, he's like, I don't know, Dad. Like, what if it has fentanyl in it? And I'm like, where the fuck did you get that idea from? I was like, that's from fucking Eric. Dude. Like, for sure.
Nice.
So he was all wigged out. I'm like, I think
that's
okay. I think we're good. I can't read the label. I don't know what's in it, but he didn't die, so that's cool.
Good.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but that was a win. I was like, all right, my kids are aware because I've had this since knowing you. Like, I've had this conversation pretty regularly of like, yo, you can't fuck up anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
When we were kids, it's like, you know, somebody gives you a pill or whatever. Yeah. It's like from their parents' medicine cabinet. It does not have fentanyl in it,
right?
Like 100%. Yeah. But now, who freaking knows?
Well, and think about just effing social media and phone. You imagine if you had a smartphone?
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God,
dude! You told me I know what you were. Yeah, like if that stuff was around back then.
And just, I mean, again,
forget politics. There'd be pictures of my D everywhere, dude.
The theme of the day is balance. All the great things that technology has had. I mean, the fact that we're doing this and the reach you can have to find new clients and, you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, the needle's got to swing the other way, and access.
Yes.
Access is terrifying. It's great, but terrifying. So access is access. Access to what? You know, there were no cell phones when I was in college. Literally, there were no. I mean, we had like the briefcase one, with the cord. You know, that you saw
the pagers
in some movies, and pagers. And there was here's the mind blowing when I talk to my kids and other people that I run. There was no internet when I was in college.
Yeah,
the internet didn't exist. If I wanted to write a paper, because I wrote so many when I was in college. You had to like
Thanks,
go to
Heather.
I know she's the one that got me through. You had to like go to a library, which is a building that has books, in it, and then you would look up the stuff, and there was anyway. But that access now that is so easy for the really, really good things, everything comes at a cost, and so I shudder to think of, and as we know, and you guys know because your kids are younger, man. I mean. What do they say? Our brain doesn't fully develop till we're in our early 20s, and if you're in my case, your late 40s. Yeah. But that's a terrifying thing, and one where whereas parents we need to provide for our children structure and perspective.
Yeah.
But our perspective is different. If you think that you're going to relate to your teenage kids for what they're going through on a day-to-day basis when they're in school. I don't think we have a clue of what it's like for these young kids to matriculate.
It's so difficult to navigate as a parent. I've had this so many times. Like, you get so frustrated. I don't know how to deal with the screen time issue in our household. Like, they need to know how to use technology, but I don't want them to use. It's like losing your mind over it all the time as a parent. And I'm like, there's no good answer. It's super frustrating. Yeah. And now we're turning the corner on, AI. And that will be as huge a shift as it was for the internet to come in. Like, maybe bigger.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm like, oh, fuck, I have no idea how to navigate. I'm going to ask ChatGPT how to navigate this
shit.
He'll fucking tell me.
Yeah, 100%. But they're going to have relationships with AI. Yeah. And I tell kids all the time, because, I spend a lot of time in high schools talking to kids about dope stuff. And we got into cell phones a lot, social media. If your parents are out there telling you that they understand what you're going through, how?
No.
None of this stuff.
I don't think you can.
And you said you can't control the access. You know what the access is influence. Mm-hmm. The internet is direct access to influence to tens of thousands of people that have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
And I heard it described perfectly because my girls are 7 and 4, and my 7-year-old neighbor girl across the street has a cell phone, and she's like 8. And my 7-year-old, of course, wants one. Somebody said, give your kids a phone when you're ready for them not to be kids anymore.
Yeah.
Because
accurate.
Immediate, and I saw it with my son, immediate influence, access to all that influence. It's wild.
Yeah. And how do you process that, and how do you have true perspective as a 7-year-old or a 17-year-old? You can't. You don't. And so it becomes, but the world is petrifying, and you're right, AI is going to come and impact our jobs. And
we use it every day.
And how, and how things happen. But again, it's one of those things where the tilt will balance out again because you're like, if it's not even that long. I mean, if you just back up the clock 50 years,
right,
and the things what we're doing right now would be mind blowing, 50 years ago, and the world still kind of churns along, and so I think that's one of the things that, as petrified as I get, like, oh my God, my kids, and I'm kind of glad that my kids are the age they are now, because they were getting older on the tail end of what your kids might be in the middle of now, but just if you pull back and be like, okay, this is scary as shit. And has the propensity to go really, really fucking far south for my kids. In the end, the world will keep rolling.
Yeah, I agree.
So
it just
look how we keep tying these lessons and principles back in right here, pulling the hand out of the bucket.
Hey, was there a part of you? Tell me this. It pissed me off a little bit. All right, ChatGPT comes out, and all of a sudden it can write papers for everybody that sound really good.
Yeah,
that was one of my skill sets. And this dude, like, so articulate, writing on paper, and the ability to convince and persuade. You were extremely talented, and I always thought I had a knack for that too. And then effing ChatGPT comes out and just wrecks my job. You know how many favors I used to get from my wife writing her papers for her or emails? I know, babe, I'm airing that. Right? I lost all of that.
Whoa.
I lost all of it.
Negative.
Effing ChatGPT.
Here, let me give you some balance. Yeah. Just because I don't know what ChatGPT is. I'm sorry. But,
good for you.
But
really?
no, because I'm notoriously poor on computers. I can barely. I mean, like, I have the same cell phone, and it has like one screen because that's how many apps I have.
Yeah.
But yes, AI can write that paper. However, you gotta deliver it.
Oh, yes.
You got to deliver it, and you got to deliver it with meaning. And so you will always be able to find the imposter who's just reading because they don't really understand what ChatGPT is giving them, and the people who understand and deliver. Delivery is hugely important.
Right.
And that's the difference between, pick it, true leadership, true whatever. If you have conviction and believe what you're saying, then you have conviction, believe what you're saying, and you will find true followers. But if you don't, you're a stuffed shirt.
I'll type into ChatGPT. Write me this. Write me this speech with conviction.
Right. Yeah.
And good delivery.
Yeah.
Done.
Right. Yeah, but
I know. I'm just kidding. I know what you're saying. You're right.
Yes.
You need to have buy-in with
what
you're delivering, especially.
Yeah. Well, in credibility. Obviously, it's no surprise that he's an insanely good speaker. Like, there's a lot we could talk about. He's a freaking ridiculous gun runner. He's our master range instructor. He's one of the few in the States. He's going to shake it off. Whatever.
No big deal.
Extremely good instructor for shooting. And it's reflected in our shootings. If you go back and watch the relative success, look, there's no, like, pure success in a shooting, right?
No.
When it's live. But, man, we've had some really good results, and a lot of that can be attributed to him. There's other agencies that are following their training dynamic. All that stuff's awesome. You can talk about guns like crazy. But I will say that, and he's definitely persuasive when he wants something, for sure. I've been the victim of that, and I've also been on the favorable side of that. But, man, one of the most impactful speeches I've ever seen and watched was the one that you delivered last year's 2 foundations ago, the one where we bought the
infamous bench.
The infamous bench, that awesome bench. Yeah. But
that was a good speech.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yes, but there's a reason for that. It wasn't just because you delivered it well, which you did.
Sure.
It's because of the place that it came from.
100%, and so I think that, and we could talk about, our foundation, and then we've had some changes that have occurred really recently that I'll bring your viewers up to speed with. But, for me, the Coeur d'Alene Police Foundation, which is now merged with the Red and Blue Foundation. Mm-hmm. Well, don't let me forget to talk about that, because otherwise Cassie will be pissed and my wife will be pissed. And, so it's funny. The Coeur d'Alene Police Foundation was formed. Now you're going to hear the ugly side of my balance, right? Because if Johann's this great person now, I wasn't always that good of a person. So years ago, we had an officer that needed help, and I wanted to help this person, and I reached out for help in the community, and was frustrated by what I found, and I said, I'm gonna do this better. I'm gonna form a foundation to help cops. And when I get motivated, as you know,
oh man,
it's like a dog on a bone. I couldn't let go, so I formed this foundation, but it really didn't have meaning or purpose. until my wife came along and said, we should take a part of this Coeur d'Alene Police Foundation and really focus on mental health. I'm like, I don't give a fuck, whatever. I'm good. I'm fine. Mental health,
good.
Mental health doesn't mean anything to me. Everything's fine. But whatever. Let's help people that are struggling mentally. And, I fell into the whole stigma associated with mental health and, teasing people that, struggled with mental health as being weak or, lame, to use a technical term. So anyway, that part starts to grow. But what do we know about cops? We're all type A. You just heard, we're all good. Hey, dude, bro, I'm good. I'm good.
All the time.
Good, dude. Hey, how'd that fucking kid swinging from the rafters treat you? I'm great, dude. I'm great. Let's go have beers. I'm standing over a dead body or, whatever. Like, I'm totally good. Or you get in a shooting. I'm totally good. It just took someone's life. It's fine. And so you fall into the trap. But like I said earlier, you're just steeping in a toxic soup, right? And you put whatever protective layers you put on, but eventually, no matter how long, you try, that shit steeps through. So I really wasn't, and it was kind of a slow, degrading spiral down. But so we formed this mental health aspect, but in order for it to work, what we found was that A, we're cops, we want things easy, and B, we don't want fucking no one knowing our business. Because we are type A. Right. I don't want Boardman to think that I'm struggling with my mental health, or I don't want Seth to think I'm a weenie because I drink Starbucks and, and some other stuff. And so, but I know, like, when I turn the lights out and I lay my head on the pillow and close my eyes, I'm like, I know I'm kind of fucked up.
Right.
And I need help. But how do I accomplish that in a way that allows me to preserve this exterior of, who
Pride.
I am, pride. Yeah. And so what we found was, like, we just got to make it easy and make it completely confidential, which we did. And so I need help. I go. No one knows about it. My bosses don't need to know about it. My friends don't need to know about it. I just go to the mental health gym, for lack of a better term. We can all associate the importance of health. And so that was a really, really cool thing. The problem is when you got to fundraise for that, you guys understand, and that makes sense to you. So the first year I gave a great speech on what we do and the importance of it. In the second year, I was like, and did you guys go? I don't know if you guys went to the second one or the one we just did where, and so I said, hey, what we need, because I'm a sports guy, and I don't love football as much as Seth, but I do love football.
Yeah.
So I was like, what's really cool? Before every Super Bowl, before every major sporting event, they always do the special interest stories, right? You're like, fucking Tom Brady, what an asshat. I wouldn't waste a drop of my piss on Tom Brady if I just drank 10 liquid deaths and he was on fire in the corner. I would hold that piss to the bitter end. So, but then all of a sudden, you're watching whatever, and they're like, Tom Brady growing up, and he talks about his youth, and they do this real special interest piece on him. You're like,
I kind of like him a little bit.
And then it shows the human. Someone always cries, and mom, and whatever. And then by the end of the, you're like, I kind of like Tom Brady, just like I liked Deshaun Watson. They did one on him when he was, at where did he go, Clemson or something?
Yep.
I was like, that was a really, and then it turns out to be, a misogynist, massage parlor rapist. But I digress. Who knew? But you're like, shit, dude, the special interest story works, and then you find yourself all of a sudden you're rooting for Tom Brady. I'm like, I got a great idea. I'm pitching it to the board before our gala. I'm like, we should do a special interest story. We'll get somebody and we'll have them tell their story about, where they struggle with mental health and how the foundation may have saved their life and, how important this is. And I'm like, cool. We don't know who anyone We don't know who anyone is.
Right. Yeah.
It's anonymous. I'm like, I don't even know who to ask, to do that. I'm like, and then it dawned on me. I was like, oh shit, I'm a client. I'm Hair Club for Men. I'm not only, the founder. Yeah. I'm a client. I'm like, I'll do it. I said, I'll go up there. I'll tell my story. And I did. And it was cathartic in a lot of ways, but it was important to get that out there and really relate it to people, on what it is that, we do, what it is that we go through, what mental health really is, what truly being healthy is, and being vulnerable as a human. And it was great. I'm still on that journey. I love our foundation. The only reason that we took them, so the Coeur d'Alene Police Foundation still exists. The mental health portion of that went to the Red and Blue Foundation, which has always existed. Red and Blue Foundation, it's redbluefoundation.org, and they've been around a long time. The mental health portion of what we do for cops and any first responder was really formed by my wife, and she built it. She researched and vetted medical providers, mental health providers, put the whole thing together, and it took off. And we didn't realize how needed it was until we started to see the number of people that use it. So we're a pretty, we're a small department. We've got 100 and some cops. When I found out that 51 of our people had been through that, and we've done this job long enough. We can look to the right and we can look to the left and be like, shit, dude, this guy's, the odds are one of us is really struggling.
Yep.
Or all of us are really struggling. And I think we all are. I think the 51 would be 101 if people just treated mental health like they treat the dentist. Well, that's a bad example because people avoid the dentist too. If people treated mental health like they treat the gym.
Right.
And so it took off. I mean, we were raising a ton of money and we were spending a ton of money, which was awesome. That made me really happy. The problem is what started out as a great idea by my wife and very, very needed in the community. It could be a full-time job.
Right.
Well, she's got a full-time job. And so, and Lord knows this guy is good at, speeches and, drinking Starbucks and whiskey and talking shit. And so
very talented.
Good skills to have.
The day-to-day, like, how do I, make this stuff work is just, and so that's the whole reason for the merger. That other foundation is letting the program run exactly as she built it, but now she has access to bookkeepers and tax professionals and those types of things. So it's going under that umbrella, but will be exactly the same as it always has been.
When you start talking about the numbers of people using it just speaks to the fact that you guys building this program, and there's others along the way. I know Taylor went down south, and really, you guys broke through the stigma that was attached to law enforcement for the longest time that you don't ever go out and reach out to anybody and talk about it, right?
Yeah.
But we do that for each other a lot. But how good is that? Because now I'm sharing it and I've got my own.
You putting that shit on me.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. I dude I worked with for years, Sam, he would call me, and he's working for Shoshone County now doing like child sex crime and stuff like that. And he calls me up. He's like, let me tell you the story. I'm like, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want it.
I'm like fucking, my head's buried in the sand at this point. I don't want to know anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, but I that has been such a huge accomplishment. You've had many at the PD. I mean, your career's been a rocket ship. We often talked about me wanting my trajectory to be like yours, right? But you've had a lot of huge wins. You created we're one of 2 cities in the state that has collective bargaining, and that was because of this guy largely, and building up that, and obviously building our range program, which is awesome. And I'd still say, man, you're big, and you've dealt with some events that we don't need to get into, but dude, you've been there through a lot. So you've accomplished a lot, and helped steer the ship, navigated some treacherous waters. But what you've done with mental health and first response in our local community, and the fact that cops trust it, is massive. Dude.
Yeah, that's just at our department. We there's people in every department here.
Right.
That the program is designed to help, going with Heather are a couple of people I truly respect. Taylor Beach, she's a sergeant at our department. She's going that, and Justin Klitsch, who is super well respected.
He sat in the hot seat.
Has he sat in the hot seat?
Absolutely.
Good. Did he hawk his soap? That's good soap, dude.
It's awesome soap. We got it right up there.
There it is.
Flagship.
And he brought you guys up, man.
Yeah.
Because he got into some heavy stuff. Because there were some things that he went through in his career and his life. And dude, good on him for being able to open up. So those out there that are like on the fence, like, hey, I know I'm struggling. I know I have some stuff, man.
Oh, man.
Go get your reps.
I
don't feel bad saying I go. It's funny that you and you imagine 6 years ago, you and me sitting there talking about going to counseling.
No.
Dude, never.
But
it saved me. I know so many guys. And what it takes well-respected dude, like manly men, honestly, to step up and lead that.
Right.
Because that stigma was around forever. When I started in law enforcement in 2007. And you go to maybe the sheriff's department, and they were just like, shut it down. Like, none of that shit would fly.
You bury it where it belongs.
You fucking let it fester inside of you until you retire, and then it will turn into cancer. So to see that shift
100%. And
it's fucking huge.
And it takes just getting it out in the open and just being so let's talk about, like, the sexy, numbers. When you asked me what the adjustment was getting to law enforcement, we talk about, hey, let's it's going to be just like Lethal Weapon or Chicago Fire. And so we all know the below 100 campaign, right? We've all been cops. And if we're ever going to get below 100 law enforcement officers killed every year, and then that, and there's felonious assaults and driving too fast and, and the other stuff, seatbelts and things like that. But the bottom line is we haven't gotten there yet. But if you look at the numbers, it's always between 60 and 70 officers a year that are killed by gunfire or stabbings, like the felonious assault part. And you're like, God, that's a lot of dudes that just, got smoked, or gals, that happens, and that's terrible. And we all want to be really motivated to be safe and well-trained, and we got to talk about guns at some point, and all these kinds of things that are really awesome in law enforcement, so that we can get that number of 60 to 70 cops. We got to win those fights, man. We got to make sure that we're, training our ground fighting techniques, and we're training our, so that we can win. Yet no one talks about, the study that says 184 of us kill ourselves every year. Every year. Yeah. It's almost triple the number of bad people killing us. And so, but we want to talk about it. We want to talk about the cool shit, the sexy shit, which is gunfights and stabbings and rolling around on the ground. But we don't want to talk about the fact that what we do to ourselves. And so that's, why I was happy to share my story. And I was trending that direction. Right. And it's always, I was trending towards being a statistic of like, God, that guy, he was always so articulate. He was always so fun to be around. All these accomplishments. He had so many friends. He was so popular. He, was the life of the party. I can't believe he was so happy. Think Robin Williams. Yeah. That guy was as happy as me. And then what? What demons, was he carrying that led to this? And so I credit it with literally saving my life, and I know that there are many similarly situated people in my shoes, both currently in law enforcement and retired, that carry that baggage. And so if we can just get to the point with mental health where it is something that is as cool as the gym, right? Because the gym's pretty cool, then we will have succeeded. Right. If we can get that 180 some down to, or at least it's commensurate with, the bad guys that kill us, that'd be a huge win. And obviously, a huge win is no one kills themselves. We all signed up for a shitty, dangerous job, and if my time comes on the street, my time comes on the street. But my God, I don't want to do it to myself.
But everybody thinks it's going to be a pile of brass and this epic fight where you're saving people and the truth is, you're 5 times more likely to take your own.
100%.
Right? So I don't think it would have had this. And this is in North Idaho. That's like the throwback. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where like the thought process is just date back a little bit. And you had that success here. But I don't think it would have gone that way if it wasn't somebody like you delivering it. Because it wasn't somebody that was just a bit of a, they were just kind of walking through the job and doing their thing. You were highly respected in the field and all that.
So it has to come from
somebody credible.
Yeah. It has to. Or the dudes that need it the most, that are, the most stoic and really bottle shit up, they won't go that route. If it doesn't come from credible.
It's got to come. It's got to come from an old guy that just beat your ass at the range.
Yeah, there you go.
Because this dude all the time.
Right, let's talk about guns.
All the time, he sets up these drills and they're awesome. It always has to do with gunfighter stuff. We don't like punching holes in paper. We got to do it twice a year, but it's moving and shooting. And every time we race, and then there will be cool swag at the end. And
That's so fun.
He's a good shooter, really good shooter.
He's being modest. Yes, but I'm a fairly decent operator of my weapons platform, right? And he'll go through and be like, "Hey, man, that was a really good run. Let's see if we can shave off half." And he'll work with me, and I'll shave off a half second. And I look over, and there will be a board, and I'm like, "What was your time?" And mine's like 3.5 seconds. He's like, "No big deal. Don't worry about what my time was. You did really, really well. It was fine." So Johann, what was your time? It's like 2.4. It's like
a whole second.
God, an entire second, and I did everything I could. Oh, he's fast. So what got you super passionate?
Well, just like anything else, I mean, I wasn't always into guns and gun running, but as part of the profession, it wasn't very, going back to let's go to Coeur d'Alene where it'll be really safe and you'll, go your whole career, everything be fine. Yeah. And inside of 2 years, I'm in my first OIS, and so I recognized, I was like, God, man, I mean, training's important. And we're always behind time. So that's why, our program is predicated upon time and what actually happens in gunfights.
Yeah.
So a gunfight is just a fight, right? It's no different than a fist fight or a ground fight with BJJ or anything like that. It's simply just a fight. And for years, I think that that platform was designed what you just said, which is punching holes in paper. Like, how do I get the bullet to go right where I want it to go, when I pull the trigger? And that's, a marksmanship fundamental that is great for hunting. And, and actually, I'm not disparaging the fundamentals of accuracy. They're massively important because when we launch live rounds out into the world, the live rounds go until they meet something that makes them stop, and that's either gravity or they hit something. Yes. And so, but we were so focused on this doesn't work. And I looked at hit ratios in law enforcement. I'm like, my God! And now with the advent of YouTube, you can see this. But I'm like, why do we miss so damn much? Our hit ratios are 30%. Mm-hmm. In a fight, and why are we missing? And I looked at the things that we were teaching, and we have these 25 year. You start at the 25-yard line, and you shoot this course of fire. I'm like, what are we doing back here? 95% of our engagements are like this. I'll tell you, 80% of our engagements are me to you, just this shit just happens right here between us. And then the other, 10% is from here to that door, which your viewers can't see, but it's 7 feet. Yep. And then the very small percentage are way out to distance. And so I'm like, well, why aren't we training this? And think about that. These engagements are really close, but we're still missing 7 out of 10 times. So what's happening? Well, we're poor fighters. We're bad fighters, meaning when we fight, in a fist fight, our mechanics, we're poor. The gunfights that all the cops that I've been in with are not like the guy from the Turkish Olympics where they're, doing this weird shit with their body and, it's just a fight. And when your mechanics are off and your body posture is off, then your end result is off. You're going to miss those punches you're throwing. A gun is an extension of your fist. And so we need to train to that, which, as you know, being in our range program, that's what we train to. And then, yes, I want, if Eric runs a drill in 2.5 seconds, by the way, he's being modest, the par time for that particular drill is literally, anything under 5 or 6 seconds is really, really good.
Okay, that gives me comfort.
And so, he's doing it in 2.5 seconds and is really angry, that, some, 53-year-old washed up guy,
That's because he's so freaking humble about it. I was like, oh, God, he's so fat.
But so time is important because we're behind time. We are reactionary in law enforcement. So I don't get to, I'm like, I think Seth's, about to do something bad. I'm going to shoot him first before he does something bad. I just don't get the luxury of doing that. So I'm going to be behind time. So the more time I can claw back when we train is the better. And so that's why I get so focused. So you look at a lot of Turan Butler, Turan Tactical, everyone likes that. I'm a big Travis Haley fan. And the reason I like Turan Butler is because he's fucking wicked fast. Yeah. And some of the chicks are pretty hot on his website, but
that goes a long way.
It does. Yeah. But you know, I like Travis Haley because he's always thinking, you know, and he talks about that you know, the moniker thinkers before shooters and the ability to adapt, because what was it that Mike Tyson said? Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face and your ears are ringing. And so adaptability, speed, violence of action, good mechanics is what I preach in our range program, because if you have good mechanics and the ability to adapt and you're fast and you invest in your skill set, you might just win a fight.
Right.
You know, it's funny, you related it to fighting.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of jiu-jitsu, and it's the same principles, right?
Yeah.
Mastering the fundamentals, getting a lot of repetitions under stress in training.
Yeah.
And so you're shaving time off everything that you do.
And
it's
thinking
exactly the same.
and adapting.
Yeah.
And it's funny, so we actually melded, so one of the things, and I think this is where we fail in leadership in law enforcement, or where we fail in leadership in anything. The failure to adapt is what holds organizations back, what holds us back as human beings.
But buddy, it's the way we've always done it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Yeah. So we get comfortable, right? Our desire to be comfortable. Okay, I'm comfortable with where I'm at the gym. I'm comfortable where I am professionally. I'm comfortable with the way I train. And that's not adapting. That's not adapting to an ever-changing world. And so, you know, one of these things we talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or in our world we call it defensive tactics, or Archon.
Yep.
And so this happened a few years ago where I used to if I can be fast enough to get out of the holster and deliver rounds, that's going to be great. And we used to teach separation, right? This is the threat right here, and if I can get separation and go to this tool, I can, you know, maybe win this fight. And what we found out, or what science found out, not us as instructors, was that it doesn't work. And it actually came out through a Force Science study, that a fantastic program where it was a traffic stop study that they just wanted to figure out the best approach to, you know, should we approach on the driver's side? Should we approach on the passenger side? You know, should we stand at the A pillar, the B pillar, the C pillar? You know, how do we keep cops from getting shot really quickly? You know, because, hi, I'd like your license and registration. The guy produces a gun and they get shot. And so, like, well, where's the safest place to stand? And we put 100 and some cops through this, and they're like, you know, doing all the numbers. And then two don't get shot. And they're like, why didn't they get shot? Well, there were the Archon guys, the defensive tactics, and when they recognized, they understood distance management, and when they recognized the threat, instead of gaining distance and going to a tool, they utilized that very short amount of time to trap the gun.
And man, if you don't train that like thousands of fucking times,
well, it's called. And Taylor Beach, if you're going to be watching this, you owe me money. It's called weaponizing the startle reflex. I tease Taylor up when she teaches with me, and so she's probably right now, that little fucker, because that's her thing, and I stole it for guns.
But she loves it. She's all about keeping cops safe.
Oh man, she is. A hell of a good person, and she's this little blonde thing, really cute, and just blonde, and you look at her and you're like, oh my gosh, and then she will whoop that ass, man. Yeah. She is,
she's been through some.
She has been through some, man. She talk about a cop that you would want to be with you 7 days a week and twice on Sundays. I never call. She's the one. But anyway, I stole that from her because not only is she she went through firearms instructor school, a fantastic shooter. She's a great fighter.
Right.
But anyway, so. Getting back to my point, we have to understand this distance management piece of it, because I see that and I'm like, oh my God, all this time and all these people that have come through my classes I've taught, I got to adapt. I'm teaching them the wrong thing. I can't get your draw stroke fast. You know, we think about perception reaction time, and it takes our brain, 0.2 to 0.25 seconds to just recognize what the fuck just happened. And then I got to trigger a response to that. And by that time, I'm way behind time on somebody that's pulling up and producing a handgun. And so I got with the Archon people. I'm like, I'm teaching some principles of fighting. Body mechanics, our base, our posture, our structure in a fight, in a ground fight that I now need to apply to firearms. Distance management is huge. If I'm looking at Seth right now and I'm looking at his waistband, he's looking at mine, he's like, well, I think that guy's got a gun. And I know that he can produce that gun quickly in tenths of seconds. How am I going to use my time? Am I going to use it in gaining distance? So now that we are going to be in a mutual exchange of gunfire, fuck no. We've done law enforcement long enough that I don't want to fight anyone one-on-one. In fact, I want to wait till you're like kind of sleepy, and then I want to park a Bearcat in your yard and bring like 30 operators, and that's kind of like the numbers I'm looking for. But that's not how it works. So I don't want a fair fight with Seth. I don't want to go back and forth, with his bullets, coming at me and my bullets going at him, because one of us might just get lucky and then the fight's over.
That happens all the time.
So if I understand distance management and I weaponize my startle reflex, I invented that, not Taylor Beach. So if I weaponize and I recognize, I'm like, well, if I think Seth's got a gun, I need to be close enough that when he starts to go for that gun, I'm not going to waste time getting my gun so that we can engage in this mutual thing, because that's just a mutual thing. I'm going to invest my time making sure my distance is such that I can trap that gun, and now we're in a ground fight. And if I train that, then I would rather be fighting over his gun than exchanging bullets, because then I can go to my training and things like that. So that was a huge shift in firearms instruction, because as firearms instructors, we like to think that this tool is the end-all, be-all tool for guns. And it's not. It's just a tool.
Right.
And it has its limitations. It has a lot of limitations. It has a lot of things that are really good and massively final, but it also has its limitations. And so you can't preach one discipline. So I need to meld.
They all blend.
We just need to be good fighters, whether that's fist fighters, ground fighters, gun fighters.
Right.
We just need to be good fighters, and that's kind of where our range program has gone over the last half a decade, and where we're going to keep going. And I don't know what's next, because I'm smart enough to know that I'm not an expert in everything, but I'll figure it out. And if I see something or learn something, I'm going to adapt to that, and I'm going to bring it to my people, because I don't care, and I love it. And look, I like having credibility. I like being fast, but there's someone faster out there.
Right.
And I like being skilled, but there's someone more skilled out there. And our range program isn't about me. My range program is about how do I get officer 77 out of 100 to win that fight. You can be a badass gun runner, and if you're into instructing or doing anything because it's going to bring you accolades, then you're in it for the wrong reason.
Right.
I feel absolutely elated when I leave any one of our department ranges and our people are performing optimally. I'm like, God, man, it's like a line of Coke. Just kidding. I don't know what that feels like. But it's just like, oh my God, I just feel so great, because I feel that my gals and guys are just this much closer to being prepared and ready to win a fight, and I'll leave that range feeling that way. And then when we don't perform well, I feel horrible. I'm like, God, I'm failing. I got to figure out a way to reach these folks. And I need to just sit down and have a reassessment on how we're teaching, because the importance of this is something so it truly isn't about me. It's about like the end result, and that is what stresses me out the most. Is every time we get in a fight, my analysis is, what did we do? What did we do right? More importantly, what do we do wrong? And how do I bridge that gap?
Well, you've heard me in briefing talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Anytime we use force, or anytime we got into something gnarly, or if it was a hot call. All right, guys, there's no rank. We're going to speak freely.
Yeah.
You've sat in on those where it's, all right, were we lucky or were we good?
Yep.
And we need to have an honest assessment. Let's try to put a percentage to this.
Yeah.
Was it 80%, 20% good? Was it 20-80? All right, how do we get more good and less lucky? And then we'll take real-world scenarios, and we've set them up that way.
Yeah, 100%.
Where we'll go run them, and that way everybody gets the opportunity to live that one live, because it's always something funky.
Yeah.
I would argue, man, and you and I've had spirited conversations about this on like the third prong of that, because being a great fighter is hugely important. And I would argue there's a third prong of that, and that's being able to recognize human behavior, being an expert in human behavior. And the only way you're going to get a baseline for what the average law-abiding public talks like, looks like, acts like, behaves like, is reps.
Yeah.
And then you ask prodding questions, or you change up your tactics, and that's why we do passenger side approaches. And you watch, hey, how long did it take them to pull over? What sort of movements were they making? Fight complacency like crazy.
Yeah.
And then ask a few probing questions, or change your approach a little bit, or call them back. Do however you want to do that.
Yeah.
But I'd say that gets us ahead of the curve a little bit.
100%.
We are out of time.
Oh my gosh.
And it's a hot conversation.
Yeah, no, I know.
See?
We will have to have you back.
Truly.
Listen, I need to be like every Thursday guy, on sports
I would
radio
love that.
that comes and
you're
just
a great speaker. You have a lot of wisdom with which comes often with an advanced age like yourself.
Hurtful, truthful, but hurtful.
Yeah.
I think
he loves having you here because he's the oldest of us. So he loves having you.
Knocking on the door to where you're at.
Okay.
Before we do the next one, we need to go shooting. And then we'll have some video of
that'd be so much fun.
Let's do it.
Some competition would be super
I
fun.
would love to have you guys out.
Well, and because
cool. Can we do some ground fighting too?
Yeah.
So I have an advantage.
Well, we'll have Taylor come out too. She'd be a lot of fun if I could ever get her to do this. I don't know if she ever would.
You need to have her. She's fantastic.
Well, because you and I, know that I'm going to kick off a bit of a judicial watch. You'd be a great sounding board for some of that.
Love to.
Of course. With his background, man, we could have a lot of fun. Oh, we did get you something. Hold on.
Stop.
Yeah. We did get some stuff.
Swag?
Just got hats.
Nice.
There's one of those, dude. And I got this in extra small.
That's my favorite.
There we go.
They make it in children's sizes. Perfect.
They do.
I love it.
No,
Thanks for having me on, guys. I had a great time. I'd love to come back.
Oh, dude, that was a blast.
We will definitely have you back.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Great conversation. I think the whole balance thing, man. That's so important in life, right?
Yeah.
That's everything.
Yeah, balance.
That's how we get through the end.
The world's a closed system. It's got to be balanced.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir. Johann
Absolutely.
Schmitz.
Take care, guys.
Catch you next time.
Next time. All right.